Hi guys, welcome to this video lecture. In this video, we are going to look at how to set up PostgreSQL database replication on Ubuntu 22.04. Now before we do so, let's have a brief overview of database replication. Now database replication is the process of copying data from a primary server to multiple servers known as replicas. The primary server accepts read and write operations, whereas the replicas serve read-only transactions. Both the primary server and replicas collectively form what is called a database cluster. The objective of database replication is to ensure redundancy, consistency, high availability, and accessibility of data, especially in high traffic and mission-critical applications. Now, there are two main types of replications. We have the physical or streaming replication. Now this is where the replication uses an entire database cluster. So it uses exact block addresses and employs byte by byte replication. In simpler terms, the entire set of data on the primary server is copied to the replica, which acts as a standby node. Now this is mostly used for disaster recovery setups and also recommended when dealing with large volumes of data. The other type of replication is the logical replication. Now this works by replicating data objects and their changes based on a unique identifier known as a primary key. So in simpler terms, logical replication copies database objects in a row-based model as opposed to physical replication, which sends everything to the replica nodes. Now typical use cases of logical replication includes replicating between major versions of PostgreSQL and also sending incremental changes in a database to replicas as they happen in real time. Now here we have a setup where we have a primary node and a replica node. Now these have been deployed to Cherry Servers. Now Cherry Servers is a leading European cloud infrastructure provider that is committed to offering private and secure cloud infrastructure to small and medium businesses at a cost-effective fee. So now with our prerequisites in place, let's go ahead and configure PostgreSQL database replication. So the first step is to install PostgreSQL Server on both the primary and the replica nodes. So I'm going to log into my primary server, which we have here. So I'm going to update the package lists by running the command sudo apt update. Okay, so we have refreshed the local cache. Now the next step is to install PostgreSQL database server, and to do so, simply run the command sudo apt install PostgreSQL -contrib like that, and pass the -y flag for non-interactive installation. So this is going to install PostgreSQL alongside other dependencies, and this will just take a few seconds, so just wait as the installation proceeds. So we have successfully installed PostgreSQL database server on the primary node. Now just to confirm that PostgreSQL is running, run the command sudo systemctl status PostgreSQL, hit enter, and as you can see from the output, we have PostgreSQL up and running. So I'm going to repeat the same steps on the replica node. So once again, I'm going to update the package lists by running sudo apt update. Okay. Then I'm going to install PostgreSQL by running sudo apt install PostgreSQL contrib -y. So once again, just give it a few seconds for the installation to complete. And there we go. So we have successfully installed PostgreSQL Server on both the replica and the primary node. So one other thing you might consider is to enable PostgreSQL. So first of all, let's check whether PostgreSQL is running here. So sudo systemctl status PostgreSQL. Yes, PostgreSQL is running. So consider also enabling PostgreSQL so that it can start automatically on system startup or upon a reboot. So here I'm going to change this to enable. So hit enter. So this has been enabled on the replica. So do likewise on the primary. Sudo systemctl enable PostgreSQL and hit enter. Alright, so that's the first step. We have successfully installed PostgreSQL and enabled the service to start automatically on both the nodes. So in the second step, we are going to show you how to configure the primary node. In this step, we are going to see how to configure the primary node in preparation for replication. First, we are going to access the PostgreSQL shell using the Postgres user. So to do so, run the command sudo -u Postgres PSQL, then hit enter. Okay, so here you can see that we have accessed the Postgres shell. Now the next step, we are going to create a replication user and assign replication privileges. So to do so, run the following command. So I'm going to create the replication user using the create role command. So create role, then I'm going to call the replication user replica user like that. Of course, you can provide your preferred name, and then you're going to assign a password with replication login password. Then here you specify your preferred password. So here's my password here. Okay, then hit enter. Great, so you can see we have the output create role, which confirms that the replication user has been created. So now you're going to log out of the PostgreSQL prompt by typing \q, then hit enter. Okay, so now as you can see, we are back to our terminal shell. Okay, now next we need to make a few configuration tweaks to the main configuration file. Okay, now to do so, first of all, let's check the version of PostgreSQL. So I'm going to access the shell once again, and then I'm going to run the query select version like that. So here you can see we are running PostgreSQL version 14. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to exit once more. I'm going to clear the screen. So now I'm going to access the main configuration file, whose location is at sudo vim. So now the path of the file is etc PostgreSQL 14 main PostgreSQL.conf. So hit enter. So this is the main PostgreSQL configuration file. Okay, now the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to scroll down and locate the listen addresses directive. So I'm going to search for the listen addresses directive. Okay, which is this one here, as you can see. So by default, PostgreSQL is configured to listen only to the local host. Okay, now what you're going to do, you're going to uncomment this. Okay, and we are going to change this value to the IP address. We're going to change this value to the IP address of the primary server, which is the server that we are on right now. So here I'm going to specify the server's IP address, which is 5.199.168.198. All right. Okay. Now, the next step, you're going to locate the directive called WAL_level. So once again, I'm going to search WAL_level like that. Okay, which is this one here, as you can see. All right, so now you're going to uncomment this. Now we are going to change it to logical like this. Okay. All right, now the next step, we are going to locate another directive called the WAL log hints like this. So this is the next directive to locate WAL_log_hints. So I'm going to uncomment this and I'm going to set it to on like that. Okay. Now that's all the changes that are needed in this configuration file. So save the changes. So here I'm going to save the changes and exit the configuration file. So now the next step is to head over to the client authentication configuration file and allow the replica to connect to the PostgreSQL database server on the primary node. So to do so, run the command sudo vim, then provide the path to the client authentication file, which is at etc PostgreSQL 14/main, then pg_hba.conf. All right, so now you need to navigate all the way to the end of the file, like you can see here. So now I'm going to add an entry that will allow the replica node to connect to the primary node. So here I'm going to specify host, then here I'll specify replication. Okay, so for the user, I'm going to define the replica user, okay, that we defined earlier on. So replica _user, and then here I'm going to specify the replica's IP address, which is 5.199.161.11. Then I'll supply the subnet mask, which is /24. Then at the very end, I'll specify MD5 hash algorithm. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to save the changes and exit the configuration file. So now to save the changes, I'm going to restart PostgreSQL by running the command sudo systemctl restart PostgreSQL like that. And then I'm going to hit enter. Then I'm going to confirm that PostgreSQL is running. So I'm going to check the status here. I'm going to hit enter, and as you can see, PostgreSQL is up and running. All right, so in the next step, we are going to configure the replica node. Let's now configure the replica node. Before the replica node can start replicating data from the primary node, you need to first of all create a copy of the primary node's data directory to the replica's data directory. So to achieve this, first of all, stop the PostgreSQL service on the replica node. So here I'm going to stop PostgreSQL by running the command sudo systemctl stop PostgreSQL. Then I'm going to hit enter. Now let me confirm that PostgreSQL has been stopped. So I'm going to verify the running status of PostgreSQL like this. So from the output, you can see that PostgreSQL is inactive. Okay, so I'm going to clear the screen. Now the next step, you need to remove all the files on the replica's data directory in order to start on a clean slate and make room for the primary node data directory. And to do so, I'm going to run the command sudo rm-rv. Then I'm going to delete the directory, the data directory, which is var lib PostgreSQL 14, which is the version, and main, like that. And I'm going to hit enter. So this is going to delete all the files in the replica's data directory. So I'm going to clear the screen. Now we are going to run the pg_base backup utility in order to copy the data from the primary node to the replica node. And the command is here, as you can see. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to run it. And I will later explain to you the options that I've used shortly. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to copy it here and run it. So I'm going to hit enter. So I'm going to be prompted for the password. Now this is the password for the replica user here. Okay, so this is the user we created on the primary node. So I'm going to provide the password. So then I'm going to hit enter. All right, so you can see some output on your screen. All right, so now let me take you through the options that we have used. So here, the -h option, this specifies the host, and in this case it's the IP address of the primary node. Okay, now the -u option specifies the replication user. In this case it's the replica user that we created. The -x option, the -x option, along with the stream value, it instructs the pg_base backup utility to stream and include the WAL files in the backup. All right. Now the -c option allows you to create a replication slot before the backup starts or gets underway, and this is used alongside the -s option, which specifies the slot name. So the replication slot name in our case is replica_1. All right. The -v option prints out the verbose output on the terminal. Okay. The -r creates two files, an empty recovery file called standby.signal and a primary node connection settings file called postgresql.auto.conf. All right. Now the -w option prompts you to provide a password for the replica user. Okay. And lastly, the -d option allows you to include the directory that you want to export the backup file. So this is the path of the directory, okay, that you want to export the backup files, okay, into and we are in this example we are placing the data under this directory, as you can see here. All right, so that's the output from our replica. Now in the next step, before we go to the next step, we need to execute the following command on the replica to grant ownership of the data directory to the Postgres user. So we are going to run the command sudo chown Postgres. So the -r option is for recursive. So we are going to grant ownership of this directory to the Postgres user. So var lib PostgreSQL 14_main. Okay. All right. Now let's start the PostgreSQL server. Okay. So sudo systemctl start PostgreSQL. Then hit enter. All right. Great. So PostgreSQL has started, and the replica will now be running in hot standby mode. All right. Now, in the next step, or in the last step, we are going to test the replication setup. In this step, which also happens to be our last step, we are going to test if replication is working as intended. So far we have configured both the primary and the replica nodes for replication. Now we are going to verify that the replica is connected to the primary node and that the primary is streaming. So to do so, we are going to access the PostgreSQL shell on the primary node. So to do so, once again, run the command sudo -u postgres PSQL, hit enter. So now we're going to query the pg_start_replication table, which contains the vital information about replication. So to do so, simply run the command select client_add for client address, then comma, then state from pg_start_replication. Then terminate the query using a semicolon. So this is the query. So you're querying the replica's IP address and the state from the pg_start replication table. So hit enter. So from the output, you can see that we have the client address listed here. So this is the IP address of our replica, and the state is streaming. So this confirms that the replica is ready for replication purpose. Okay, so now just to confirm that replication is working as intended, we are going to create a sample database called students. So still on the PostgreSQL shell, create a sample database. So in our case, we'll create a database called, so create database. We're going to call it students_db, like that. Hit enter. Okay, so our database is in place. Okay, now you're going to switch to the database and create a table. So once again, run /c, then the name of the database, which is students_db. Okay, so from the output, you can see you are now connected to database students_db as user Postgres. Okay, now from here, we are going to create a table called student details with a few details about the student. So we're going to create a table. So here we're going to create table. We are going to use the create table query. So create table, then the name of the table, students_details, like that. Okay, so we are going to give it 3 values. So the first column will take the first name, and the value is virtual. So we are going to give it a length of 15 characters. Okay, then last name. So here we're going to give it a virtual and the length of 15 characters. And lastly, we're going to have the email address, once again virtual. Then we're going to give it 40 characters. And then finally, we're going to close this with a bracket and semicolon. Okay, so this is our table schema. So we have the first name, the last name, and the email. So I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now we are going to add values to the table. So we're going to use the insert query. So insert into student details. Okay, so first name, comma, last name, comma, email, then values, So here the first name, I'm going to give it Arthur. Then second name, Spencer, comma. Then for the email, I'm going to give it Arthur Spencer at gmail.com. Okay, then I'm going to close this with a parenthesis and add a semicolon towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to press enter. All right, so we have added the details to the table. So we can query the table using the select statement. So select all from student details sorry, we have a mistake here. So this should be an S, students details, like that. Hit enter. Okay, so as you can see, we have a table, and this is the first row that contains the values that we inserted over here. All right, so now in the next step, we are going to head over to the Replica node and see whether we can have, or see whether we can see this table. So here, once again, head over to the Replica node and switch to the PostgreSQL shell. So sudo -u Postgres PSQL. Okay. All right, so here we are. So now what you're going to do is to list the database that was created in the primary node. Okay, so I'm going to run the query \l. Great, and here you can see we have the database listed here, students DB. All right, now let's connect to the database and see whether we can see the table that we've just created. So once again, connect to the database using \c, then the name of the database, which is students DB, then hit enter. Okay, now from here you can query the table for all the records stored, and to do so, just run the command select all from students details colon, and there we have it. So you can see we have the database and the table with all the records in place. So this shows that our replication setup is working as intended, and this confirms that our setup for PostgreSQL has been successful. So from here you can keep on adding more entries you can continue adding more entries to the database in the replica, and everything will be okay. So now let's add one more record. So here we can insert another record here. So here we can say, let's say Mike, and then we can give another name. So let's say Doe. So here we can have Mike Doe at gmail.com. Hit enter. Okay, so let's query the table once again. So select all from students details. Okay, so here you can see we have another row, Mike Doe. Okay, so here let's query the table once again, and you can see we have another record, Mike Doe. So this confirms our replication is working as intended. All right, so we have reached the end of this lecture. Thank you for coming this far. We have looked at replication in PostgreSQL, and we have configured this on Ubuntu 22.04. So that's it guys for this video. If you like this video and found it insightful, please leave a like and hit the subscribe button so that you can continue making more of these videos. So thank you and see you in the next video.